Sheila Jennings was balancing her checkbook, checking it out online with her credit union statement. It was coming out perfectly. She finished and decided to check to see if she had any emails, clicked on the email link, and got her husband's email by mistake. One email caught her attention. It had the heading "Thanks for the story." She clicked on it. It read, "Dear Tabitha, thanks for the wonderful story, my pretty girlfriend on fictionmania.tv. I will be looking forward to more of your stories. Greg aka Maid Susan." This was a complete surprise to her. She wondered what this was all about. She clicked on the link to Fictiontopia. She clicked on the last 2 days list, and the third story listing was for My Pretty Girlfriend. She clicked on the author's index and soon was on the author's page. She clicked on Tabitha and got all that stories by Tabitha. There were 23 stories listed there. She clicked on the first story and started reading. She decided to download the story and print it out. As it was printing, she sent herself a link by email to the author's page for Tabitha. She was intrigued by what she had found out. She checked the email author and saw indeed it was her husband's email address. She couldn't believe her husband was writing stories like that. When it finished printing all 17 pages of the story, she stapled them together. She then checked her email and found she had 3 email messages, including the one she had sent herself. She logged off and went to the toilet. She sat and started reading. She was shocked at what she read. She was halfway through the story before she realized she was done going to the bathroom. She went into the living room and sat and read the rest of the story. She finished it and put it in the drawer to her nightstand. She still couldn't believe her husband, Tim, had written it. It intrigued her that he would be writing stories like this. She then booted the computer and printed out every last one of his stories. She saw they were getting low on paper for the printer and knew she would have to tell Tim to get some more paper. She now had an armload of stories to read. She placed all of the stories in the drawer of her nightstand and picked the top one to read. She took a highlighter pen to highlight parts that she thought were interesting. By the time she decided to do something else, she had read 5 stories and highlighted the interesting parts. She still found it hard to believe that Tim had written this type of story. It took her 3 days to read all of his stories. She still had a hard time believing he had written them. She went on Fictiontopia and clicked on the reviews of each story, and was surprised that he had gotten so many good reviews. She didn't know what to do about any of this. Should she come right out and say something to Tim, or should she wait and see if she came up with another way to let him know she had found out about his writing talents? She decided to wait. She couldn't get some of the things out of her head that he had written. When she was next on the computer, she clicked the history button to see where he had all been, and was shocked to see all of the femdom and transgender story sites he had visited. She checked some of them out. She found his stories on another site, and then while checking out yet another site, she found an advice column. She wrote for some advice on how she should handle this discovery. The next day she checked the site and found 5 answers to her inquiry. 4 of them said he was probably writing about his dream, and the 5th one said he was probably just writing for relaxation. She thought about the 4 answers and wondered if that was really his dream he was writing about. Did he really want to dress as a woman and be humiliated into doing the things he wrote about? If this was so, she had never suspected he was a closet sissy. Then she firmly made up her mind. If he wanted to be a sissy, she could make his dream come true. She started shopping for his new outfits right then. She was amazed at what you could buy on the internet. It was over a month later that she looked in the closet in the spare bedroom and saw she had just about everything she needed for her plan. She just had to get a couple of items and she would be all ready. He had a week's vacation starting at the end of the week, and she had scheduled a week's vacation for the same time without telling Tim. She reread his stories plus a new one he had posted. She wasn't sure she could go through with it, but she wanted to try to see if he really was a sissy at heart. The closer it got to the day, the more anxious she got. She found herself wanting to get started sooner but waited impatiently. At last Friday came, and at breakfast Sheila asked him what he had planned for his vacation. He told her he was going to play it by ear, but he figured on a couple of days fishing at Round Lake. He told her he was going to stop at Pat's bar after work. She knew he liked to stop there and would more than likely come home soused. She didn't say anything, but that was part of her plan. If he did, it would be perfect for her to start her plans for him. When Tim came home, he was indeed soused. He was out of it. Sheila helped him to sit on the edge of the bed. She helped him get completely undressed, and as she pulled a pair of lacy black panties up his legs, she thought about how this was too easy. He sat there in a stupor, and as she glued the breast forms on his chest. She glued the long fake fingernails on his fingers and applied bright red lipstick to his lips, followed by the long-lasting lip gloss to make them shiny like wet paint. Then she slipped the lacy nightgown on him. She helped him lie down on top of the bed. Then she took 5 pictures of him that clearly showed his face with the digital camera. When she was ready for bed, she could hardly wait until the morning. She was so excited she had a hard time getting to sleep. Finally falling asleep, she was happy that her plan was so successful so far. The next morning she could hardly wait for him to get up. Finally at mid-morning she heard him stirring. She headed for the bedroom, and when she saw him sit up on the edge of the bed, she handed him a drink for his obvious hangover and said, "Good morning, Tabitha." He didn't react to her calling him Tabitha. He shook his head after he drank the glass of hangover medicine. Then he looked to see he was wearing a nightgown. He was in shock, not knowing what was happening to him. "What am I doing in this nightgown?" He went to scratch his chin and saw the long red fingernails he had. He made a face like he didn't know where he was. Sheila laughed and he came out of his daze. "What is going on? Why am I in these clothes, and why do I have long red fingernails?" "Why, Tabitha, you are going to live out some of your story ideas. I just know you will love it." "What are you talking about?" "I found your stories on Fictiontopia, and I checked with one of those advice columns, and most of the responses said you were writing about what you wished for, your dreams. I am going to give you those dreams, Tabitha. I just read a couple of stories on a site and thought I could do as good or better, is all. They aren't my dreams or wishes. Stop this right now." "No." "Now you listen. You wrote all about something like this, so it must be what you want. You are going to get what you want. All of your stories show what a sissy you want to be. I have read all of your stories and they follow a pattern. You gave me the pattern to follow, and now you are going to live out some of the things you wrote about. I was writing fiction, not what I wanted to do. Can't you understand that? Subconsciously it is what you want to do whether you admit it or not. Now it's time you get started. I think I have everything figured out that you put in most of your stories, and you are going to live out those stories. Aren't you excited about that? Stop this right now. Don't shout or all the neighbors will be over here and see you in your nightgown. Is that what you want? No, I want you to stop this nonsense. Now, Tabitha, did you or did you not write all those stories? Yes, I wrote them, but that doesn't mean I want to live them. Well, you are going to live them. Think of it this way, you will see if you react like the men in your stories. I don't want to do this. Can't you see that? You don't have any choice. I have these pictures ready to send to your workplace. Now you can do and wear whatever I say, or I'll send them to your parents and to Edna, where you work. I know she will quickly have them on every bulletin board there. She showed him the 5 pictures she took last night. His jaw dropped and he told her she can't send them, that they would ruin him. She told him then he'd better do as she said. She handed him a bra to put on and he took the nightgown off and started to put it on. She handed him a garter belt and told him to run the garters inside his panties, which he did. When she handed him black floral patterned stockings he was going to refuse, but she held up one of the pictures for him to look at. He put them on and got them hooked. I could have gotten you DD breast forms, but I didn't. You seem to like big breasts in your stories, but I want you to look like the real thing, not some fake woman. You will be glad to know I didn't buy you a maid's uniform. They were too expensive, but I got the next best thing. I got a lot of things on eBay for a song. I never bought anything from there before, but you can find some real good deals there. Oh sure, thanks a lot, he said sarcastically. Then she handed him a black blouse trimmed with white lace which she had to button up the back for him. Then it was the black square dance skirt with the sewn-in petticoat. When he had it on, the skirt stood straight out. You better take good care of these. These were awful expensive, but I got you exactly what you put in most of your stories, she said. She fastened the locking black patent leather 5-inch stiletto heels on his feet. I can't walk in these shoes. Do you want me to break an ankle? You can and will walk in them. Remember in your stories you say to take little steps and point your toes straight ahead. Now, stand up and try walking a bit. He stood and took about 3 steps, almost falling. He found out that if he kept his body back a little bit he could walk in them. He was walking not fast like he usually did, but he was at least walking in them. Sheila came behind him and tied a sheer white apron with fancy lace trimmed tightly around his waist. She stepped in front of him and looked at her creation. Yes, you definitely do look like a maid. You like to have the man become a maid in a lot of your stories, so now you can be that maid. Aren't you excited about that? I want to get out of these clothes. My writing was just fiction, not something I wanted to do. Can't you understand that? You can stop denying this is what you want. I know better. Now you can write more realistically about how it feels, and what you think about when you are cleaning the house and doing the laundry and cooking the meals. Now go make me some breakfast. I am hungry after helping you get into your pretty clothes. Besides, Sue next door is coming to do your hair and makeup. She doesn't have an appointment until 11:30 at the salon, so she will do you up real good. She knows about this? Who else did you tell? I suppose you told the television stations so they can put it on the news. She is the only one I told. I wanted her to come here to do you up. Do you want me to call her and cancel, then have you go to the beauty parlor to get your hair and face done? No, I don't want to go anywhere dressed like this. Then you better get moving as you have a lot to do today. He slowly left the bedroom and went to make her some breakfast. As he made her breakfast, he wondered what she had planned for him. He thought about his stories and shuddered at some of the things he'd written. Now he wished he hadn't written anything. He called her for breakfast just as Sue arrived. She told him he looked sweet and had that look like a cat looking at a canary look on her face. She told him that he was lucky he had let his hair grow a bit and that she could give him a real good-looking hairdo. He just gave her a dirty look. Sheila started to eat her breakfast as Sue was shampooing his hair in the kitchen sink. She finished and looked over all the items Sheila had picked up for her to use. Sue told Sheila she had done a good job and started to work on his hair. When Sue was done, he had a beautiful curly hairdo and his face was all made up in dark colors. He had dark eyeshadow with long false eyelashes and dark red lips that called for kissing. When he looked in the mirror, he couldn't believe it was him. He looked so different. He fingered his hair to make sure it was him. He gasped when he saw his thin eyebrows. How was he supposed to make them look like his old ones when it came time to go back to work? He came out of the bathroom and found Sue had gone. He asked Sheila, "How am I supposed to make my eyebrows look their old way when I go to work?" "Why would you want to make them look like they did? You want to look natural, don't you?" "What are you talking about?" "I am talking about when I go to work. How do I get to make my eyebrows look like they did?" In 3/4 of your stories, what did you have the men wear to work? Dresses, but you can't be seriously thinking about sending me to work in a dress, are you? It is something I am thinking about. It depends on how good you are this week. If you do as I say without a lot of argument, then I may reconsider sending you to work in a dress. Maybe I'll let you wear stirrup pants and a blouse. How does that sound? You can't send me to work wearing women's clothes. Do you want to see me lose my job? They can't fire you for wearing women's clothes. It's against the law to discriminate on things like that. I think you would look good in pink stirrup pants and a sheer pink lacy blouse. You would really knock them dead. All I got to say is that you better think about what you are doing. You will wreck my life. Is that what you want to do? No, now stop and think about your stories. None of the men in your stories' lives were wrecked, were they? You did write realistic stories, didn't you? Now you can see how realistic they are. So far you are following just what your stories said happened. Wait until we get into some of the finer points of some of your stories. Now go clean up the kitchen. I want the counters to shine and you can clean the stove and refrigerator real good. He could see he wasn't getting anywhere, and went to start cleaning. He had just started when she came and told him he should start the laundry and hang it outside so it got that fresh air smell to it. He argued that he couldn't go out dressed like he was, that the neighbors would see him. She told him he was following the stories perfectly and he was going to do it. She told him it was in almost all of his stories and now he could live it. She said if he wanted to get out of dresses he would do as she said and not give any argument. He was devastated that she would expect him to do such a thing. He knew he had lost the argument and started the laundry, then went back to cleaning the kitchen. By the time he had the counters shining like new, it was time to make lunch. He made soup and a sandwich for Sheila and him. As they were eating, Sheila told him there were some things in his stories she didn't think she would do. She wouldn't feed him female hormones or make him sleep in the spare bedroom. She told him everything else was on the table. He asked that she keep it in the house and not make him go out wearing a dress. She countered with the fact in just about every one of his stories the man went shopping for dresses and went other places. She told him he had to get his ears pierced like the men in his stories did. Otherwise, how was he going to be able to describe it accurately in his stories? He didn't like what he was hearing and wondered if he could get out of this. He thought about putting his foot down, but he knew that then Sheila would surely send the pictures to his parents and workplace. He finished lunch in silence. After lunch he started the stove, and while the oven cleaner was doing its thing he cleaned the refrigerator. Then he tackled the oven, and it took longer than he thought it would. By the time he was done, Sheila told him the laundry was dry and he could iron it. When he was finishing that up, Sheila asked when supper would be ready. He quickly put some quartered chicken on the grill and made some French fries to go with it. At supper he told Sheila he had the kitchen all done. She asked if he'd scrubbed the floor. He told her he hadn't and she told him he could scrub it after supper. She told him he could do it on his hands and knees. After he cleaned up after supper he started the floor. It actually felt good to get off of his feet. When he finished the floor, Sheila told him he did a great job on it. She said he could do it that way from now on. He didn't know if she was kidding or not. They were both sitting in the living room when Sheila told him she couldn't wait for tomorrow. He dreaded what was going to happen. He wasn't sure, and didn't know, but the way she said it meant something bad was going to happen. Then it was Sunday and she had him dressed in a bright red dress with blue ruffles on top trimmed with white lace. The bottom of the full skirt also had a blue ruffle trimmed with the same white lace. She told him he looked very patriotic in it. She had him wear a very tight girdle, telling him it held his girlish figure in where it was supposed to. He was becoming very adept at walking in the black heels. At breakfast she told him they were going to the nature preserve in the morning and have a picnic lunch there, and then they could go to the zoo. He said he would rather stay home, but she insisted, telling him all of his men characters went places. How was he to know about going places if he didn't go? He knew he was losing this one also. She had him put on his makeup and pack a picnic lunch. He packed the leftover chicken and made a quick salad for them. She handed him a red purse and they were on their way. At the nature center she made sure she was a little ahead of him to make him walk faster. He was carrying the picnic basket, and she'd chosen the 3-mile trail. Halfway to the end he thought he couldn't take another step in the heels, but trudged forward anyhow. By the time they got to the end of the trail he was glad when she said they could sit at one of the picnic tables and eat lunch. He sat down and rubbed the backs of his legs. She saw him rubbing the backs of his legs and told him that the men in his stories never had to rub the backs of their legs. They enjoyed their picnic lunch, and too soon for him they were on their way back. On the way they met 2 men who said "Good day, ladies," to them. She answered them and he nodded his head to them. Back at the car he was never so glad to be able to sit down in his life. She drove the 15 miles to the zoo. It was a 20-minute drive and he was glad she took her time getting there. At the zoo she led the way and he had to keep up. His legs were killing him. She chatted continuously and he just listened. She stopped for short times at every animal cage and exhibit. His legs were starting to pound. Finally he asked if they couldn't sit for a spell. She agreed and they sat at a small table and had a soda. "Well, Tabitha, are you enjoying yourself? It is such a beautiful day for an outing, isn't it?" "Yes, it is a beautiful day, but as far as enjoying it goes, it would be more enjoyable if my legs didn't hurt so much." "Your legs shouldn't hurt that much. You know you have to look nice to attract attention from all of the men. I have noticed a lot of them looking at you. If you see one who looks interesting, let me know. Maybe I can hook you up with a boyfriend." "Don't even talk about things like that. It's bad enough you have me in these clothes. What else can you do to me? I will not have anything to do with any man. Get that idea out of your head. I have gone along with this craziness of yours so far, but don't go too far." She knew by the tone of his voice he meant it. She wondered how she could work on him a little more. Then she knew what she was going to do. They finally left the zoo, and in the car he was constantly rubbing his legs. She told him to stop rubbing his legs, but instinctively every time he got a cramp he rubbed them. He was surprised when she pulled into a family restaurant for supper. A waitress greeted them as 2 ladies and seated them in a booth. They ordered, and as they were waiting Sheila decided to have some fun with him. "I have decided you should thank me for going to all of the trouble to get you your new outfits. I think you owe me big time for all that I have done. Now let's hear a big thank you from you." "Why should I thank you for doing this to me? I don't want to wear dresses, but you are forcing me to with your blackmailing me with those pictures. It would be better if you thanked me in a nice way. I hate to think of what could happen to you if when the waitress comes with the food and I call you Tim instead of Tabitha. Why do you have to threaten me? You are going to go too far, and after something happens you will regret it, only it will be too late. When the waitress came, Sheila said, "Tabitha, don't you just love the way this place is decorated?" He answered in a loud whisper that he just loved it. They ate the rest of their meal in silence. After they had finished, she told him he had money in his purse to pay the bill. He paid the bill as she headed for the car. When he got to the car, he found the door locked and the window open a couple of inches. He told her to unlock the door. "I told you I thought you should thank me for getting you all of your pretty outfits, and you refused. You can walk home from here and think about thanking me. If you aren't going to thank me, then you better find a place to sleep tonight. Maybe Sue will let you sleep on their couch. See you later." She drove off and he started walking. He knew it was a little over 3 miles to their house. He wasn't going to thank her for putting him in dresses. He was angry and walked in a purposeful manner. When he had walked about a half mile, he had to stop to rub his legs. Then he continued to walk and thought about what to do if Sheila followed through with her threat not to let him into the house. About halfway home, he wondered if he shouldn't thank her just to get it over with. He knew once she got an idea in her head, it was impossible to get it out. He thought about how he should phrase it. 2 blocks from home, he had to stop and sit on a bus stop bench. He thought he couldn't take another step. Then he noticed he was itching from the tight girdle. He sat there for over 20 minutes, then realized he had to get home. Sheila saw him walking up the driveway. She smiled to herself, thinking about how nicely he walked in the heels. He tried the entrance door to the garage and found it was locked. They never locked that door. He went to the front door. It was locked also. He pushed the doorbell and waited. After about 3 or 4 minutes, the door opened, but only a few inches. She had the chain lock hooked. "Well, do you have something to say? I am sorry I took so long to thank you for all of the lovely outfits. I should have thanked you earlier. I'll accept that. Wait while I unlock the chain." She undid the chain and let him in. She asked him if he wanted to get out of the clothes. He readily agreed that it was a good idea. As he was undressing, he realized he hadn't noticed how tight the girdle was until he had it off. He was all sweaty, and when Sheila suggested a bath, he readily agreed to that. In the bathroom, she said, "You know what is coming now. You had it in all of your stories." He didn't know what she was talking about, but when she started to rub lotion all over his body, he knew it was hair remover. He had to stand until it started to work. First, he started to itch all over, then it became a slow burning sensation. Then it really got uncomfortable. Sheila had run him a bath and put scented bubble bath crystals in it. She didn't have to tell him twice that he could get in. He enjoyed the feel of the scented water. He could have stayed there all night, it felt so great. But Sheila came in and told him it was time to get out. She handed him a towel and told him to pat himself dry. He did, and when he was done, she gave him a plastic bottle with a shaker on it and told him to powder himself good. He could smell the floral scent of the powder, but put quite a bit on him. It felt good against his bare skin. When he looked in the mirror on the back of the bathroom door, he saw he was completely hairless from his neck down. He really felt naked, looking at himself. He had never experienced these feelings before. In the bedroom, Sheila handed him a very frilly baby doll pajama outfit to put on. When he had it on, she told him he really looked like a sexy woman. She said he looked like he wanted to screw. She asked him if he wanted to screw, and he said he did. He was surprised when she told him to bend forward over the bed. She was right behind him and told him he was going to experience what he had in 3/4 of his stories. He felt 1, and then 2, then 3 fingers pushed into his rear. He knew what was coming and didn't dare move. He decided he wasn't going to show any emotion as she screwed him in the behind. She started thrusting in and out. It hurt just a little bit, and then he couldn't help himself. It started to feel good, then great. He was ready to cry when he realized he was backing into her thrusts. Then he got a warm sensation that really took over his whole body. He didn't know what it was, but he loved it. She had come twice, and he didn't realize she had pulled out until she asked him how it was. "It was all right, I guess," he said in a bored voice. "Don't tell me it was just all right. I never heard you stretch out yes, so long and so loud. Tell me about it. How did you feel?" He knew he was caught and said, "I can't describe it. I felt something all over my body. It was a great feeling, but I don't know where it came from. You came as a woman. That is the way a woman feels when she comes. Is it anything like you wrote about? Definitely not. I never thought it could be like that. See, there is a bright side to wearing a dress and acting like a woman. Yes, I guess there is. It was good, but can I go back to wearing my regular clothes now? Your dresses are your regular clothes now. The more you ask to go back to men's clothes, the longer you will wear dresses. Do you think you can remember that?" "Yes. I can," he said dejectedly. He slept deep that night. He didn't realize how tired he was until he heard Sheila calling him the next morning. She told him to get up and wear his blue dress. He got up and dressed as she said. When he walked into the kitchen, she handed him a cup of coffee and told him they had to get going. He asked where they were going and she said, "Shopping." He asked that they not go, but she said it was Monday so the mall would not be busy, and asked if he wanted to wait until it was busy. He agreed that it was wiser to go early before the crowds got larger. At the mall, she had him in a big department store looking at dresses. She held out 3 of them and he didn't like any of them. The 4th one was scarlet with white lace on the bodice and a straight skirt. He said that one looked nice, so she had him try it on. It fit perfectly and she put it in the cart. They found another one that she didn't know was the kind he liked until she asked him. It was a bright yellow one with red roses embroidered on the front and a ring of red roses near the bottom of the full skirt. As they rounded the corner of an aisle, she spotted swimsuits. She said he probably could use one and started to look at bikinis. She noticed his eyes widen when she held out a metallic gold one with ruffled trim. She put it in the basket. On a table, they had purses on sale. She told him he could use one for work. He shuddered when she said that, and she reminded him that in all of his stories the man went to work dressed in women's clothes. He protested as she chose a white hobo-style bag for him, trimmed with red roses, saying she knew he liked red roses. They checked out, and in the concourse they saw an earring kiosk. There he got his ears pierced, and 1 pair of studs with a red stone on top and 1 pair with tiny red roses on the bottom. He was blushing the whole time the attendant was working on him. Afterward, he told her it wasn't as painful as he thought it would be. She was surprised he wasn't putting up more of a fight as she led him into a self-serve shoe store. There they got him a pair of red flats with a little bow at the toe. She let him wear the flats out of the store and he was smiling to be out of the heels. She asked him if there was anything else he could think of that he needed. He didn't think there was. She said they should take a walk around another one of the anchor stores. They were walking down the main aisle looking at sale items when they got to a display of women's watch combos that featured a matching watch, earrings, necklace, and bracelet. The price wasn't bad, and she selected a gold combo for him. She told him he would have to wait to wear the earrings, but he could wear the rest of it now. They didn't find anything else there, but he was just enjoying walking in the flats. They exited the store and she asked if he wanted to look at anything else. He said he didn't, so they headed home. At home she told him he should try on his bikini. He agreed, but first she said she wanted to take his breast forms off. She got them off and he put the bikini on. She told him he looked darling in it and to leave it on. She asked him what dress he wanted to wear over it and he chose the yellow one with the roses. She helped him by zipping up the back and laughed as he twirled in front of the mirror. She could tell he was getting into it. She told him it was lunch time and to make them some lunch. He made bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches on toast. After lunch she told him they were going visiting. He didn't want to go, but she insisted. She drove, and when she pulled into a strange driveway he wondered what was happening. She rang the doorbell and a lady answered. Sheila and the lady gave each other a hug and they entered. Sheila introduced Tabitha to Janet and told her that Tabitha needed more color and asked her if she still had her tanning bed. She said she did, that it was down in the family room in the basement. Sheila asked if Tabitha could use it while they talked. Janet said it would be fine. Sheila led him downstairs and helped him get his dress off, but told him to leave his bikini on. He laid down on the tanning bed and she closed the cover and started the bed up. She then went back upstairs to talk to Janet. She and Janet had a long talk. For a while she forgot about Tabitha in the tanning bed. When she remembered, she went down to let him out of it. When she opened the cover she saw he was sleeping, and also saw he was very dark. She woke him, and when he was fully awake she had him stand in front of a mirror that was down there. He saw he had a very dark tan. Then she told him to remove the top of his bikini. He gasped as he saw the outline of the bikini on his chest. She said it was something he had never written about, but she thought he could use it in a future story. He said he was done writing stories. She told him she didn't believe that. He said he could never go in public like that, and she laughed and told him it would fade eventually. As she zipped up his dress she told him he now looked like a healthy woman with some color to his complexion. He wondered how she could do this to him, and why he had never thought about this happening to him. They went back upstairs and the three of them had a glass of lemonade, and Sheila and Janet chatted about all sorts of things. Tabitha kept his mouth shut. They finally left, and he was shocked when Sheila told him that she had told Janet all about him and that Janet knew it was him. It was the middle of the afternoon, and Sheila decided they should do something else. She drove the opposite direction from their house. He asked where they were going and she said it was time to get a little culture. He was surprised when she parked in front of the museum. They spent 2 hours walking around the museum. He was becoming more relaxed as his confidence rose, and she noticed he now had a sway to his hips. She decided he should go the next step in his ordeal. They left the museum. It was the supper hour, so she stopped at a supper club, telling him he wouldn't have to cook when they got home. The hostess greeted them as two ladies and told them it would be a half-hour wait. They went into the bar and saw a lot of young men and women there. A lot of young women looked like office workers stopping for a drink, possibly to meet some young men. They got cocktails and sat at a table near the wall. A few minutes later 2 men came and brought them refills of their drinks and asked if they could join them. Sheila said they could and they introduced themselves as Taylor and Jeff. Taylor sat next to Sheila and Jeff sat by Tabitha. Taylor was soon rubbing Sheila's knee and she was responding in kind. Jeff started to rub Tabitha's back and he didn't know what to do. He asked to be excused and asked Sheila to accompany him to the ladies' room. "What is going on? This is going too far. I think we should leave right now. Simmer down. This is what is in your stories. Now you can live it. Enjoy it. The most you will have to do is accept a kiss eventually. Now, we are going back out there and you better act like a lady or I might forget and call you Tim. They returned to the table and the waitress was there to take their orders. They ordered and the waitress told them their table was table 10. Taylor led the conversation during the whole meal. Jeff asked his name and he told him it was Tabitha. Jeff said that was a very pretty name for a pretty woman. After they ate, Sheila drove Taylor and Jeff followed with Tabitha in Taylor's car. Tabitha smiled as Jeff had trouble shifting the standard transmission. But after 3 stops for stop and go lights, he finally got it down pat. Jeff escorted Tabitha to the door of their house and took him in his strong arms and planted a kiss on his lips. For a minute Tabitha liked the kiss, then broke the clutch. Jeff asked him if he wanted to go out tomorrow night and he declined, saying they had already made plans. He took Jeff's number, saying he would call him. Then Jeff told him something he was totally surprised at. Jeff said he was bisexual and that he knew Tabitha was a man. He said that didn't bother him in the least. Tabitha told him he would definitely keep Jeff in mind. Jeff gave him a big smile and then kissed him again. Sheila was right behind Jeff when they broke the embrace. Jeff turned and left as Sheila had the biggest grin on her face. In the house she said, "Well, it looks like you really liked Jeff. 2 kisses is a sure sign of impending love." "Stop it." "He grabbed me and I couldn't get away. He is so strong that when he grabs you don't have a chance to get away. You sure don't waste time latching on to a man. Are you going to go out with him again?" "No, I am not. You got me into this and I didn't want any part of it. I am not interested in any man." Sheila was laughing and told him to get undressed and put something comfortable on. He went and got undressed and put a silk nightgown on. When he came out, Sheila was on the phone. When she joined him, she told him she had made an appointment for him with Sue for 9:30 at the beauty parlor. When he protested, she reminded him that in just about every one of his stories the man went to a beauty parlor. He was dreading going to the beauty parlor already. He didn't know what she had in store for him but knew he would be going, like it or not. The next morning he wore the yellow dress with the red roses on it. He felt a sense of dread about going to the beauty parlor. When Sheila entered the room, she was all smiles. He asked why he had to go to the beauty parlor and she told him he was going to get his hair restyled plus some other enhancements to his face. He didn't know what was going on, but he had butterflies in his stomach. At the beauty parlor, Sue told him she knew exactly what to do. Sheila was there and held a bag which she said was the clothes for him to wear after Sue got done with him. He was afraid to ask to see them. She offered him a cup of coffee, and as soon as he drank it he was sleepy and knew the coffee was drugged. His anxiety increased, wondering what Sheila had up her sleeve. He dozed off and Sue went to work on him. He woke up, and when he was back with it he could see Sheila smiling at him. He dreaded the moment Sue would turn him toward the mirror. She slowly turned him to see what she had done to him. He was surprised to see that all of his makeup was off and his hair was done in man style. It was the face he was used to seeing in the mirror. Sheila came and handed him a bag and told him to go into the back room and change, saying he wouldn't look right in that dress. He went into the back room and looked in the bag. It had his men's clothes. He couldn't believe it. He was in heaven getting his regular clothes back. He stripped the women's clothes off in a hurry and started to get dressed in his regular clothes. The first thing he noticed was that his clothes weren't as nice feeling on him. He knew he would miss the silky feeling of the panties and underwear, but there was no way he wanted to return to wearing women's clothes. By the time he was fully dressed in his clothes, he was feeling pretty good. He strode out of the little room feeling great. He saw Sheila grinning at him. He wondered why she had changed her mind. He went to her and kissed her and then thanked her. Sue laughed when she saw that. She came by him and gave him a hug and said, "Welcome back." He said he still had the bikini outline on his chest, and Sue told him she would be over tonight to see what she could do about that. When he mentioned his eyebrows, she told him to sit back down in her chair. With an eyebrow pencil, she skillfully drew fuller eyebrows on him, showing him how to do it. It didn't look quite the same, but it did look a lot better to him. In the car, Sheila said she knew Sue had a secret way to look tanned, because she never saw her out tanning in her backyard. She said now she would find out what Sue used. He could hold it in no longer. He asked her why she had changed her mind about him wearing dresses. She told him he would have to wait until they got home, then she would tell him. She chuckled when she stopped for lunch at a diner. He was anxious to find out why she had changed her mind, but he didn't want to upset her and have her change her mind back. He waited for her to tell him. "You are wondering why I had Sue make these changes in you. I have done some thinking, and I am not mad that you wrote those stories, but I am upset that you never told me about them. They are not my normal venue of reading, but I wondered if they were really your dreams or wants. I know now they are not, and I love you, so I am allowing you to return to your former self. If you think I went too far, I am sorry, but it was the only way to find out I could think of. No, I don't think you went too far, but you came close. I love you and want to do as you want me to. Therefore, Tabitha is retired. I will no longer write any stories. No, I do not want you to stop writing. Besides, look at how you can write from experience now. You can describe how everything feels and how you felt about it. I think you should get at least a couple of stories out of what you have learned, don't you? Well, I do remember what has happened, and just about every feeling. I guess I could write a couple more stories. Good, then that is settled. Now what are we going to do with the rest of our vacation? I kind of wanted to do some fishing up at Round Lake. They have an excellent sand beach there. You could get some sun there if you want to go along. That sounds good. I need some sun to get some color. I'll pack a picnic lunch. That night when Sue came over, she had a large bottle of bronzing lotion. Sheila watched as she applied it to the light areas on his chest, and after 3 applications you could hardly make out the outline of the bikini top anymore. Sue told him she was glad he was back in his regular clothes again. He had to agree with her. After Sue had left, he and Sheila had a serious talk. He admitted to Sheila that he sometimes didn't mind wearing the dresses, and that they were comfortable in an unusual way. Sheila said she was afraid of that, but if and when he wanted to wear a dress, to go ahead and wear one. The next day they were at Round Lake and he went fishing. At noon he came in, and hadn't caught anything. They enjoyed a picnic lunch, and he said that as long as the place was deserted they might as well go swimming. Sheila already had her swimsuit on and he went to change. When he came back he was wearing the bikini. Sheila laughed and gave him a kiss. They swam for about an hour, then called it a day. He changed back into his regular clothes and they started out. When we get home, why don't you change into a dress and help me clean a bit? How does that sound? It sounds okay to me as long as you aren't starting all over again, he said, laughing. She laughed with him and knew that putting him in dresses had actually brought them closer together.